The security challenge in Nigeria has actually gotten to a head as parents and politicians, religious leaders, everyone has started talking. But I think for the very first time in recent times now, the president of Nigeria has met his security chiefs 12 times. No, rather 3 times in 12 days. And of course, the governors in the southern region are also converging, talking about all of this. So that's our focus today as we wrap up discussion for the week here on The Square. I'm Sulaiman. Welcome. President Buhari again on the 11th of May met with the service chiefs and other key security, stakeholders in the country. Now, the meeting was the third the president had with the security chiefs in the last 12 days. Now, having met them on May 4 and April 30. Now, the importance of these officers to the security makeup of Nigeria cannot be overestimated, as there's more need for interagency cooperation and the creation of a telepathic understanding across agencies and the respective forces. Now, intelligence, long viewed as inadequate enough in Nigeria to battle its area of security challenges, may have improved in the past few months, with results seen in the prosecution of sponsors of terrorism. Now, governors of states in southern Nigeria also asked President Buhari to address the country on the state of security in Nigeria. Now, joining me to look at this is Liborous Oshoma. He's a lawyer, human rights activist, and Emmanuel Ado, a public affairs analyst, both of them join me on the program. Pretty much later, Kabir Adamu, who is a security expert, will be on the show. Now, gentlemen, good to see you both on Village Square Africa.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Well, the good thing is that Emmanuel Ado is very well connected with happenings in Nigeria's northern region. Let's start from you, Emmanuel Ado. The state of Kaduna, which you're very familiar with, has been in the news. And of course, the governor of the state, Nasir El-Rufai, has been pained and worried about security situation in that state, especially as it relates to students. Tell us how, since after the release of those kidnapped students, what has it been like in terms of, beg your pardon, security in Kaduna at the moment?
I want to tell you that nothing has changed in terms of the government doing what it needs to do. As you know, of course, the kidnap of the Afaka students and the Greenfield and Afaka students, of course, being students that gain prominence. But we still have crises in places like Yuwa, Igabi, Zaria area. So in terms of efforts, the government is not sleeping because until this insurgency is crushed and totally crushed, there's no sleeping. So I want to assure you, the release of, even as we speak, the Greenfield students are still being held. But of course, you know the official position of the Kaduna State government. There are efforts by good, well-meaning citizens and, of course, the families of the students to get them out. So, but the overall strategy of the Kaduna State government has remained that we need to secure Nigeria, and I think the governor has been very forceful in his position that we need more men. The Nigerian military, the Nigerian police force, they need more men. They need to beef up their numbers. As we speak now, the numbers are not inspiring. And if what is happening in Kaduna is anything to go by, I pity states like Niger State, which is twice Kaduna or thrice Kaduna State. If Kaduna State has 9,000 policemen, down from about 13,000 when Erifai came in 2015, and the numbers from Niger that I'm getting is about 6,000, and you can imagine the landmass of Niger State. So I think we need to get certain things right. It's a shame when you look back, if you look back, that this country fought a civil war and decisively were able to crush the rebellion. And what did they do? They mobilized men. They mobilized men. I grew up hearing about the mobilization of soldiers, but it's rather unfortunate that the last service chiefs, they rather concentrated on building universities. When you have an insurgency.
We'll come back. We'll come back to you, Emmanuel, so that we can actually expatiate more on the service chiefs, the past service chiefs, and talk more about more like an assessment on what they did for Nigeria. Quickly here in Lagos, Liborous, back to you. Listening to Emmanuel, first, how did you take the news of the governors of southern states, meeting in Delta State, specifically Asaba, to look at, these burning issues? Do you think such a convergence was, very timely?
For me, thank you. It was a mixed reaction, really. My first reaction was, yes, it is good to meet. They are meeting now, better late than never. My second reaction was, what steps are the governor taking internally to quell or to combat insecurity, in their domain? We saw the debates, the back and forth debates between the governors in the Southwest and the federal government over Amotekun. We also heard of the formation of Ado in Southeast, and then maybe a few vigilantes here and there in those states. And after that, what next? Yes, you say you do not control the security apparatus. We all know that constitutionally. But we also know that in some cases, some governors have also individually empowered local vigilante, to provide security, because insecurity is local and you need to tackle it locally. So it is not enough to come together and then ban. There also need to be, I expect that there ought to have been state laws by now, even though that law had been in existence. Open grazing had been banned right from the First Republic in Nigeria. It's been outlawed. I also expected that there will be concerted efforts by the individual governors to ensure that their forests are safe and combed and rid of bandits, using, especially, and like I also always say, using the local vigilante. Because, Sulai, you will agree with me that nobody can police Auchi more than the man in Auchi. In the same vein, nobody can police Anegbete more than that man from Anegbete. Nobody can police Agege more than those boys in Agege. So I think these are the modalities that we should be engaging in. Enough of, we have been meeting. It is good to meet. When they meet, what I expect is to compare notes, not, this first meeting, and then they say, yes, they ban open grazing. They still pledge their allegiance to the unity of Nigeria, who does fantastic. They are calling on the president to convoke, a dialogue. Have they convoked dialogues in their various states also to ensure that, there's some of these issues are taken care of? So that's why I said, for me, it's a mixed feeling when I heard of the meeting. It is better late than never, but we need to do much more than that. at this stage we are in our life.
Let me come to you, Emmanuel Ado. Still, I know we still haven't actually touched or scratched the surface looking at the past security chiefs in Nigeria. But listening to Liborous, he said something very key here. A time was where the group called the Nigeria Governors Forum was a group, a peer review, group to look at notes and compare, notes among what they call colleague governors. See how it's been done in your state, what you're doing right, what you've tried and tested. So in Kaduna, for instance, is that, operational when it comes to security matters amongst the northern governors, as we have seen in the southern states governors?
My reaction to the meeting of the southern governors, we must not play into the hands of ethnic warlords, northern governors, southern governors, the whole of this country. I keep telling people, yes, people might decide to talk about Kaduna, they might decide to talk about Niger, they might decide to talk about River State, but my position is that the whole 36 states of Nigeria, the Federal Republic of Nigeria is under siege. And
somehow I think, that's a glitch.
I would prefer the governors themselves.
Okay, he's back.
Are you with me?
Yeah, we lost you for a bit there, but good to see you back again.
Okay. So considering all the agitations by regional bodies, I don't think the governors, like you are talking about peer review, should play into the hands of regional warlords by meeting in Asaba, the North will meet in Kaduna, the North Central will meet and all that. We don't need that. This is time for serious action. And going back to your question, Kaduna State they've never pretended. But I must commend the governor because from 2015, he saw that security was going to be an issue. He paid attention to it. And by 2019, the first thing he did was to create a Ministry of Internal Security and Home Affairs. And that has played a very, very major role in terms of what Kaduna has accomplished. As we speak now, to the glory of God, Abuja-Kaduna Highway, it used to be a daily occurrence, kidnap and all that. They've been able to secure it. And there are a whole lot of issues that Kaduna is tackling. So Kaduna is willing. Kaduna has been playing host to governors of the Northwest. We need to tackle this as a body because what happens, there's this forest between Kaduna, runs through to Zamfara, to Niger State. So when you act in isolation, when Zamfara puts the heat on the bandits, they run to Katsina. When Katsina does the same, they come to Kaduna. When Kaduna puts on the heat, they rush to Niger. So Niger State Governor, yes, Niger is in North Central zone, but he's been relating with Kaduna. Abu Lolo is virtually talking with El-Rufai every other day, and they are working together in terms of the other day, Masari was here, Abu Lolo was here in Kaduna, and they met. So I think, again, the reality of our situation, which Nigerians must come to terms with, is that these governors are really, really glorified chief security officers. They cannot even move a recruit of the Nigerian police, talk less of maybe a corporal in the Nigerian army, who only the president or acting delegating his powers
but again, whose fault? Let me quickly bring in Liborous, who is also a lawyer. Liborous, quickly listening to Emmanuel, what do you have to say, knowing full well that the governors can always lobby and even ask each representative from their states to let them in on what they want to do when it comes to rejigging or the constitution of the country. Take us through the process. Do you think that it's still an okay thing for Nigerians to still see the governors or say the governors are helpless when it comes to security matters?
Yes and no, Sulai. Listening to Emmanuel Ado, one would really think that in one vein, he said the governors are helpless. In another vein, he said the governors have been doing so much. They push security from Kaduna, then they run to Katsina. Katsina pushes it, they run to Niger. As if the governors really are the ones pushing this security. It is the men of the Nigerian army and men of the Nigerian police. They agree that we are under police, and also we do not have enough personnel in the Nigerian army. That should be the focus. In terms of providing security, yes, it is constitutionally the governors are helpless in as far as commanding police and commanding Nigerian army is concerned, but they are not helpless to provide, and empower their local vigilantes in the local communities to provide security for the people. In that aspect, they are not helpless. That's why I will not blame anybody. They already know the provision of the constitution before they aspire to become chief executive officer, Combs, chief security officer. But that said, I also do not agree that the northern governors or southern governors shouldn't meet. Meeting does not mean that they are playing into the hands of ethnic warlords. The problem is that we have a security crisis in our hands, and we can no longer pretend that a certain group of persons, a certain extraction from Nigeria, are taking the unity of Nigeria for granted. Why is it that, truth or false, why is it that consistently people said Fulani headsmen are invading farms, ravaging farms, but there's this attempt to shush people, don't mention it, don't call it, and in some cases they say they are arrested, they are released. If you remember, at some point, Governor El-Rufai did say that he paid bandits so as not to carry out a reprisal attack because their cows were rustled. So all of that gave impetus to what we are seeing now. You remember recently also, Issa Pantemi is videos and audios of his preaching against killing, supporting the killing of infidels were released. And what did the government say? The government said these are videos he made of preaching he conducted as a young man of 32 years. But you forget one thing, which is very key and germane. The people that Issa Pantemi indoctrinated at that time, not all of them have repented today. They still see killing of other people who are non-Muslims as, a worship of God. So that's why you see some people now, those in the South, decide to come together and say, how do we protect our borders? What security measures can we take to ensure that our areas are safe? We are chief security officers. Yes, constitutionally we cannot command the Nigerian police, we cannot command the Nigerian army, but we also need to synergize. There's need to create a synergy. This is the same synergy I expected long ago. There's need to create synergy to protect our own, protect this area, especially given the fact that the national government body language, as far as headsmen that have consistently created security challenges is concerned, it's not encouraging. So that's why that, must be said, and it is very key. But like I said, yes, they do not have powers constitutionally, but they have powers also in other areas. They collect security votes. They can arm and empower their local vigilantes, even like we saw the JTF in Borno. So you can have similar outfits here, but they must be fully controlled so that the arms given to them are not used to pursue perceived enemies the way we saw, thugs that were used for political gain.
Let me bring in Emmanuel Ado here, and I also attempt a double here, Emmanuel Ado. Quickly here, Liborous has just reminded us of what's happening in Nigeria's northeast, the setting up of the group called a civilian JTF. Tell us, in Nigeria's northwestern region, is there a similar group? And of course, what do you make of the Nigerian government establishing the Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons?
First, let me make this abundantly clear. When the argument for community policing, most people would ask, are you sure the state can fund community policing? Luckily, Senator Obasani, Kaduna Central, has 4 consequential bills before the Senate. It's passed first reading. Hopefully, that will equip us with community police. So, Kaduna State government, I'm not asking, I'm not in doubt about what they are doing. They are funding. Before police ever sends money from Abuja, they have gotten money from El-Rufai. Kaduna State government is funding. They are the ones buying fuel. They are paying allowances, 1 million naira for any policeman or any officer who gets killed in the line of duty. They are buying fuel to patrol Abuja, Birnin-Gwari, Zaria. They are paying allowances. So to that extent, yes, in spite of their powerlessness, the powerlessness of all the 36 governors, they are not sitting idle. They are doing something. Because at the end of the day, these are their people. The federal government exists in vacuum. It is at the states and the local government that you have people. So you cannot accuse them of not doing enough. But I'm happy he did acknowledge the fact that the governors are glorified chief security officers. And the earlier we look at these issues in a holistic manner, we have very serious challenges on our hands. Empower the governors, like I've said earlier on. What way do we need to go? Whether you change service chiefs 20 times with the number of men you have today in the Nigerian Armed Forces, you are not going to get any results. I heard you counting the number of times the president had security meetings with the top echelon of the military and the police. It is not going to change anything. To move forward, we don't have a reservist force. We only have only God knows what number, 120. Only God knows with retirement, deaths, and all that. So, like I was saying earlier on, it's unbelievable that a country which fought a civil war is in this status. What do we need to do? Mobilize 250,000 Nigerians. I know Bola made his 50 million mistake. No, Bola Tinubu, let's go for 250,000 men and women. Train them, and we'll see results. If it means in the process that we will be paying them 10 million, it is not too much to pay. Insurance and whatever. And after the civil war, after this war on the insurgency, we can still keep some of them. You cannot imagine a country of 200 million. Kaduna State, 10 million. You have 9,000 policemen and women. So moving forward, I would push vigorously that we go for more men on the more boots on the ground. I'll go for more recruitment of policemen and women. And then we must, whether we like it or not, I read the communique by the Southern governors. And if you look at the APC True Federalism Committee report, which El-Rufai chaired, you'll find that there are so many good things about that report because they are supported with bills. And that's why it's been easy for Obasani, for Query to take one on NJC. Uba is taking the ones on community police. Somebody else is doing something about minimum wage. We need true federalism. As we speak, not one Southern senator or member of the House of Representatives has taken something from that bill. It does not matter whether it's APC that produced that working document. The important thing is that we have looked state resource. We have heard people talk. We have heard agitations about resource control. Now that APC committee came up with it and said, allow states to control their resources and they pay tax to the federal government the way it is done in every other place. But as we speak, you expect somebody from Bayelsa, Delta State, or Akwa Ibom, or Rivers to have taken up that bill and give it life. Nobody has done that. So we need to be serious. We have problems. Yes, true. Federalism will help us devolve power from the all federal government to the states, and then we can begin to do what is right for our country, to develop. It's a shame where we are, and the whole black world is looking up to us to get it right. So for me, rather than concentrate on building a university, the service chiefs should recruit more men, and then we can give these insurgents a bloody nose. That is very important. Just a point of clarification about El-Rufai. I know it's a popular season. People want to enjoy the bashing of El-Rufai. If you don't understand the context of certain things, you will also continue to fall into that trap. Those bandits, that interview is subject of that story that he paid on bandits is subject of court action, because what happened was 2011, Kaduna State, if you remember, was one of the states where there were riots when the presidential elections were held, and the then CPC candidate, Muhammadu Buhari, of course, did not do well, and his supporters went into town. I live in Kaduna. I've always lived in Kaduna, so I will tell you this because I have always lived there and I follow events. So Yapoa, God grant him eternal rest. The governor then convinced Goodluck Jonathan to release money for compensation. Namadi, who later became vice president, he was in PDP. He had his house burnt. Yusuf Mirago had his house burnt. Several other people had their houses burnt. People lost their cattle. People lost properties. So the compensation was being handled by Yapoa. Unfortunately, he died. And when you come in as a governor, if you read through files, like my friends who always tell me, I've never worked in public service, that files will speak to you. Files will speak to you. And El-Rufai did TSA. TSA money came in. And what's this money? They said it's for compensation of victims of the 2011 riots. There were people that we don't talk about.
Let me stop you. I'm afraid I need to bring Liborous Emmanuel Ado, so that we can actually close this. Liborous, Emmanuel has said so much about what's happening in Kaduna State, and he's also giving a bird's eye view of what the situation is in Kaduna. What are those other things you think the government, I'll let you react to that, then quickly also weigh into the handling of other smaller, groups in the country, even if they are proscribed, like IBOP. Is the government's handling of IBOP, well and okay? Because for some experts, they say the government has too much on its plate, from the southeast to the northeast to the southwest and even northwest. Tell us quickly, do you think the Nigerian government has handled IBOP pretty well?
Sulai, we cannot deceive ourselves that the Buhari-led administration had not just IBOP, had not handled security situation very well. I told you, I said the unity of Nigeria is a give and take thing. Nigerians have lived together, there's been communal crisis, but when the government, in trying to play a neutral position, support one against the other. The picture you paint is that you have yours, and that those ones that are not yours should seek for help from somewhere else. That had further, fueled the fire of the insecurity in Nigeria. Even the Kaduna State that Emmanuel Ado had talked about beautifully. You would think Kaduna State is El Dorado. There are people from Kaduna, including House of Representative members, that had also at some point cried out that bandits had come to raid their communities and the police were nowhere to be found. You would think that the said Kaduna-Abuja highway that is talking about, that is now El Dorado, that brigadier generals, major generals, military officers no longer abandon that road and take the train route. So I don't even want to go there, because all of these are fueled by the body language of a central government that see no evil in a monster called headsmen that are bandits, ravaging travelers, farmers, villagers, and sacking towns. They're now coming to the issue of the IPOB, who that have been agitating for secession. Yes, I agree. You say the unity of Nigeria is not negotiable. There is nothing that is not negotiable. If a man feels that he's not getting a fair share in an entity or in a marriage, then he has a right to negotiate. What the best you can do for those people, like you like call them miscreants, if you like call them labor, because some of these people were not born when the Civil War was fought. So they do not understand what it means to what crisis means. So what do? You try to explain to them. When Osinbajo acted as president of Nigeria, in the heat of that crisis, why was there calmness? The acting president at that time, took turn to visit some of these places, had stakeholders meeting with them, and was able to calm them before you now begin to talk about policing, army, and the rest. But a situation where you are rehabilitating members of Boko Haram, and then peaceful protesters from the southeast and in southwest are gunned down and then treated like terrorists in the southeast. That what you're impliedly telling the people is that there are some criminals are more important than the other. So, and those people, and then you have, I will always mention this, then you have certain persons who believe that Nigeria is their territory to conquer. And then some people that now say, okay, we do no longer want to be part of this your territory. You treat them like terrorists. Why yours, you are rehabilitating them, creating bills to send them to school, and then also now, what do you call it, receive them back into the military. What picture will you be sending? General picture will you be sending to the entire country? These are some of the issues that fuel the insecurity. And then lastly, on the issue of El-Rufai, I am not a student. I've been graduated long ago. And like Emmanuel Ado has said, we also follow the event. We are not, El-Rufai didn't say that he's following up the compensation initiated by his predecessor in office. He said categorically that the Fulani man does not forget. And until some of these people whose cattle have been rustled will come back and attack villages. It is because of statements like that that embolden those people, and that is why Kaduna State today is what it is, and that's why all of a sudden he has woken up, which is commendable to say, I will not pay ransom. Fantastic. But then we should not forget some of those things that we did before. And also, I am not one of those who is seeking for media relevance by wanting to back El-Rufai. Let us call our leaders to question when they air. And when they perform, we give them kudos. And then on his, this is a final one, on his report, that committee was set up by the APC. And what has the APC done with the report? It is gathering dogs. And then you say Senate should, these are constitutional issues, and not Absolutely. Just an act of the National Assembly. So they are constitutional issues. It is for the APC that set up the committee to begin to deal with, which should move this country forward. And let's not begin to to romanticize or fantasize with governors.
Well, no doubt. We'll stay on the matter of security in Nigeria. Gentlemen, Emmanuel Ado and Liborous Oshoma, many thanks for speaking with us here on VSA. We'll take a moment. When we'll come back, Kabir Adamu, security expert, joins us then to look at the security situation in Nigeria. Join us again. The home stretch here on VSA, looking at security situation in Nigeria. I'm now being joined by a security expert, Kabir Adamu. Good to see you again, and a happy holiday.
Thank you, Sulaiman. Good evening.
Well, quite a lot has been happening, and for the very first time, Nigerians are wondering, asking questions of the sudden, meetings by the president with his security chiefs, and that's 3 meetings in just 12 days. What do you make of such meetings, and how effective can they be in the whole fight against insurgency in Nigeria?
Okay, once again, I think it shows how the president takes security seriously. If we remember, his tripod promise to Nigeria included security. The others are diversifying the economy and then tackling corruption. Now, unfortunately, in the 6 years that President Buhari has been in power, we've seen the manifestation of different aspects of security. Some of them have remained while new ones have evolved. And so these meetings, the fact that he's having 3 of National Security Council meetings, 3 in a row in a span of about 12 days, I think is an indication of how the kind of prominence he gives security. Unfortunately, however, the perspective out there is that these meetings have not really manifested in a reduction in the security challenges that are affecting the country. And there is a perspective out there that perhaps the modalities of the meeting should have been changed. In this instance, it's a National Security Council meeting. And yes, there is a constitutional provision for the National Security Council, but also in that constitutional provision, the president has been given the powers to expand the National Security Council. In this instance, those that are putting forward this perspective have the opinion that perhaps he should have invited the governors of the 36 states, as well as the leadership of the National Assembly, so that a political engagement and the different components of the security challenges will be considered. If you recall the statement by the National Security Advisor after the meeting yesterday, he alluded to drivers of insecurity. He included unemployment, the economic downturn, socio-economic grievances, name them. Now, those are issues that cannot be addressed alone by the federal government. And so those that are saying that perhaps it should have been an expanded National Security Council involving the governors are of the opinion that getting the buy-in of the governors to address those issues would probably be more result-oriented. And they also add that in 2019, the federal government launched the revised national security strategy, where there was a promise to change the state-centric approach to security. to a more citizen-centered approach. And that means, for instance, there is a desire to democratize security. Now, if everything security is going to be implemented at the grassroots level, then perhaps one of the best ways to start this democratization is at the level of these councils, so that representatives of the people will be invited to these councils, such as the governors themselves and the leadership of the National Assembly, as well as members of the high-ranking members of the judiciary, so that at least decisions can be taken at that level. And then the type of speech part that we're seeing at the moment, where governors come out and make public statements that would leave the country reeling for a week, would reduce. They would look at each other in the face and sort of tell each other the truth and come out with single unified statements. Unfortunately, we've seen the result, the end of the meeting yesterday. They've come up with conclusions. As an example, new policies will be implemented in the Southeast and South-South, but we don't know what those policies are, and I don't think it has really gone far in addressing the concerns among Nigerians at the moment. Just today, there was an attempt to attack 2 security formations in the Southeast, in Akwa Ibom specifically. So the issues still remain, despite these meetings, unfortunately.
Well, again, talking about the meetings, we've also had Nigerians, irrespective of status, asking the president to address the nation, perhaps to douse tension. You've also just reminded us of some governors making incendiary comments that are capable of further dividing the country. Is a presidential address at the point in time needed?
Well, if the objective of the address is to give hope, reassure Nigerians, and provide some form of leeway in terms of solution to solving the problems, then yes, in any situation that can be likened to a near crisis situation, which is where we are at the moment, leadership seeks to do those 3 things: reassure, give hope, and provide solutions. Then yes, to that extent, an address by the #1 citizen that seeks to do these 3 things would definitely go a long way towards containing and reducing the very high level of tension at the moment.
Well, as an expert, help us break this. Just recently, the president did impose a no-fly zone in Zamfara State, especially around its mineral deposit, areas. Do you think foreign interest in Nigeria's mineral deposits as some of the challenges, especially in the northeast of that country?
So, Sulaiman, it's been documented that mining in particular is unfortunately associated with this type of militancy or even insurgency and criminality that we're seeing in Nigeria. However, I'm yet to see any verifiable evidence that suggests there is a link between the mining in Zamfara and the type of criminality, especially banditry, that is occurring in Zamfara. I know that there are, theories out there, but then just like there are those theories, there are also expert opinions that have stated categorically that there is no linkage. In fact, one of the best articles I've seen on this matter is by a former commissioner of lands and whatever in Zamfara State. He gave a breakdown of all the licenses that have been issued for mining in the state, and the fact that I think of about 13 at that time, or 14, I can't recall exactly, that only one of those licenses have been exploited, and that the majority of the mining that is going on in the state is artisanal mining. Now, through to that report, when the current governor came in, you recall he had to bring together those artisanal miners because he realized that the artisanal mining itself was feeding into the banditry where, for instance, they used the gold to buy weapons, sometimes to protect toughs. And so he decided to now start buying the gold from them to prevent that. And that was when he visited Mr. President. And of course, you remember the whole, rancor that caused. So in summary, I'm not aware that there is a linkage between the kind of criminality or banditry that we're seeing in the Northeast and mining. But the bigger issue for me is the control and the surveillance capabilities that we have for our airspace. In the last, probably I would say decade, I have been in different fora, and because of what I do, I have been exposed to revelations that suggest to me that we can do better in terms of our ability to have eyes in our airspace. All sovereign countries that have the capacity to manage security within their sovereign territory have dominance over their airspace. Now, where there is a suggestion that we do not have that dominance, then I guess the first thing we should do in order to improve our security is to ensure we have total dominance over our airspace. Just, I think a few days ago, over last weekend, there was this, I would say, viral information going around that a helicopter was seen in Niger State. And of course, it was linked to the former head of state, and he quickly came out to say he's not in any way linked or associated with that. So there is enough evidence suggesting that we can do better in terms of the types of surveillance capabilities, radar systems, both visual, audio, and sonic that we have in our airspace to allow us to know what is happening within our airspace. Currently, I'm not convinced we have that.
What exactly, honestly, is Nigeria dealing with? Because if you look at Nigeria's northeast and even northwest, northeast is Boko Haram. In the northwest, the name is bandits. In the central, sort of places like Benue State, unknown gunmen or killer headsmen. And you go to Nigeria's southeast, is unknown gunmen and killers. You know, what is it that this nation is truly dealing with at the moment?
Sulaiman, it's almost hilarious. I am tempted to laugh, but because of the gravity of the issue, of course, one can't laugh over a situation where Nigerians are being killed. Different authorities have given figures, some ranging from around 10, 12,000 to 30,000 by these so-called groups that have been given different nomenclatures. In my honest opinion, we're dealing with three issues, as it were. What I've categorized as farmer-herder violence, where you have militias on the two sides, the farmer side as well as the herder side, that have been armed to propagate the interest of either side. So if it's farmers, they've got militias protecting, quote unquote, their land. And if it's herders, they've got militias. And this is well documented. Then you've got what I would call the bandit groups that, to a larger extent, cells of gunmen that are living outside the authority of the state. They do not recognize the constitutionality of the Nigerian state, and so are operating outside those laws with the type of impunity that is reprehensible by, and to an extent, almost, I would say, abhorrent by any right-thinking person that can call himself a human being. And then you've got the last group that are the criminals who engage in kidnap for ransom. Now there is an interlink between, especially the last two, the bandits, and the kidnap for ransom criminals. Of course, under that, you also have cattle rustling groups under the last criminal group that I mentioned. And so in all of this, I think the Nigerian media, and to an extent the international media, have also unfortunately and unwittingly assisted in sort of befundling the average Nigerian, for the simple reason that when this thing started, the nomenclature that was used was herdsmen, sometimes with violence attached to it. And so over time, because the media is an influencer, a majority of Nigerians saw the issue as a herdsman, or sometimes even Fulani as added to it. So it's Fulani herdsmen. And that is why even the governors, when they spoke, that the Southwest governors, when they met yesterday in Delta State, mentioned that. And the majority of Nigerians, in fact, I would say that today, if you call my 13-year-old son and ask him who is a herdsman, he's likely to tell you that that person carrying the gun and killing people around, because that's what he reads. When in reality, if he writes that in an exam, it's likely to fail, because that's not what a herdsman is. So that, unfortunately, has fed into this kind of nomenclature that you've mentioned. that are flying around. I know that recently a lot of kickback has arisen. I'm one of the persons advocating for, that we should avoid stigmatization. We should avoid ethnic profiling. It's what led to the ethnic cleansing in Rwanda. And if we continue stigmatization and ethnic profiling, and unfortunately that too could happen in Nigeria.
Now let's close on this. What are those indicators, key indicators that you might want to share with Nigerians for them to recognize that we have started seeing or making some form of success in the fight against these criminals and insurgents?
Well, key indicators would be reestablishing social order. And I hate to be the harbinger of bad news. We're not yet there. For us to establish social order, there must be community engagement. And so that's the way to go. If you ask me what the solution is, I'll repeat it, engagement, engagement, engagement. So in the first indication for me would be if we provide the platform for this engagement. I mentioned as some of the drivers in the beginning of our conversation, socioeconomic grievance. Now, how do we address this socioeconomic grievance? One of them is the perception of marginalization in certain parts of the country. How do we address that? It's through political engagement. And so the onus is on our politicians to make sure they commence a process of genuine engagement so that this perception of marginalization is reduced tremendously. The other indicators or the other drivers, such as unemployment, the economic, degradation, even environmental degradation, name them. All of those things are issues that would require good governance to address, and that would allow the second element, which is law enforcement, to come in and reestablish social order. Now, do we have enough personnel? It's debatable. I am not of the opinion that the number of security personnel we have in the country are not enough. Because frankly, at my position, I would say we've got 27 ministries, departments, and agencies that are involved in security. If all of these 27 come together, I have a feeling we'll have enough, but they are not coming together. They are currently operating in silos, sometimes in unhealthy rivalries. And so that UN ratio recommendation of 1 to 450 for the policing in the country is not being met. It's grossly undermet, mainly because we've got these agencies spread and not operating together. So that's also key. The third element, which is also tied into the second one, is effective justice system that would punish offenders. So the moment we start seeing that, where once you commit an offense, irrespective of your ethnic, political, or religious inclination, you are likely to be arrested and punished, then that for me would be a good indicator. Are we there yet? Unfortunately, no. Good news is that just today, the Minister of Information, mentioned this factor, and I'm hoping that it's not just talk, that they would actually walk the talk.
Well, it's a fine place for us to say thank you for being such nice company, as always, Kabir Adamu, security experts. But again, listening to you and our two other previous guests, Emmanuel Ado and Liborous Oshoma, shows that we expect better results in the coming days as Nigerians wait to live in peace again. Now, so from the regular stories of abductions, terrorism, attacks on police formations, it is hoped that all these change in quick time. I'm Sulaiman Aledeh. I'll see you again.